Good morning, my friends. Today, it was sunny. Now it's pretty gray outside, which is kind of a shame. Fortunately, I ended up accidentally uploading a video today in which the audio was actually missing. So, my bad. So now I'm redoing this entire topic. Hopefully, I cover some of the main points that I brought up in the last one. So my main point, we're talking about smartwatches. Smartwatches are the newfangled touchscreen devices that have been, popping up in popularity. By the way, I don't have a coffee yet because I drank all of it in my last video, so I'm not going to be drinking anything in this one. So smartwatches, they are sort of becoming this somewhat popular thing that's happening around in the world. And quite personally, I think this new phenomenon that's sort of popping up is a little bit of a fad. And I'll explain why. It's for various different reasons. Let's say I like to compare it to the Bluetooth headset that people had before, like around 10 years ago. It was pretty popular. The Bluetooth headset was a pretty staple adornment that a lot of businessmen, a lot of professionals used to have, and you don't really see them that much anymore. They still exist in sort of rare instances, and it's not like a weird thing for somebody to have, but it's definitely not common, I would say, anymore. No one really has a Bluetooth. I don't know anyone who has a Bluetooth headpiece, which I feel like is indicative of the fleetingness of its efficiency as technology, which I feel like we're entering this phase of singularity where technology is becoming more and more efficient, and it's becoming to a point where that specific efficiency is sort of unnecessary. It's getting to a point where we don't really need to be that efficient. We don't really need a headpiece to constantly be tuned into our phone calls. It's not that complicated to take your phone out of your pocket and answer the phone like that. I don't think people even make that many phone calls anymore. Most of the everything is done through text or email, which I feel like is a lot more simple. It's a lot more simple. So smartwatches, I feel like, are in the same category. The biggest importance that smartwatches might have is basically, if you have like something like a Fitbit, is it can track your heart rate, which is sort of a neat little thing to have, but at the end of the day, it's not really important. It's not something that I need to know every second of the day, right? I feel like this new development of smartwatches might be incorporated in regular watches. People still wear regular watches as a stylistic choice. I'm wearing one right now. It's a Casio, fully digital. It cost me about $30, so I'm not investing like $300 into a watch here. So I think the technology of monitoring your heart rate isn't exactly something that's so special or unique. I think that if that's going to be a case for the standard of what's useful about a smartwatch, it'll definitely be incorporated in luxury watches. Say a Rolex has an indicator that tells you your heart rate on it. It's like a new little feature. It could be just something like that. I don't think watches are really going to go anywhere, and I find it's both a piece of jewelry that sort of looks nice, and it's it's a mostly aesthetic purpose, but it also has a practical quality to it. I can always just check the time easily. I don't have to pull out my phone all the time, which is a lot more practical than the Bluetooth headpiece, which I find is unnecessary. I'm not really making that many calls to the point where I constantly need to be tuned in, so to speak. I also have problems with Bluetooth in general. I find Bluetooth tends not to really work a lot of the times. Bluetooth tends to be very problematic, and every time I try to connect to Bluetooth, there's always some little problem. It always takes a couple minutes to get it sorted, and it's always a pain in the ass. I always prefer just the standard aux cord for music, Sonos, all this automatic in the cloud bullshit. I really don't like it. Find it very inefficient. which is the irony of it. It's supposed to be more efficient, but I find wires to be the most efficient because a wire, there's no bullshit. You just plug it in and it works. And if it doesn't work, then there's just something wrong with the wire. A lot of the times you have Bluetooth, it doesn't work. It's like, oh, you have to go into this setting, you have to go into that setting, you have to restart the machine, you have to do all this bullshit, and that's Bluetooth. But we're not talking about Bluetooth, we're talking about smartwatches. So smartwatches specifically have a feature where you can measure your heart rate, which is the biggest thing that it has. And I think that's not important. I can always check my heart rate, and I don't need a specific number. I can just, check it, and it's going at a normal pace. I can check it again maybe if it's going too fast. I don't even really need to know it in general. It's just if I ever want to know the general idea of what my pulse is, I can always just check with my fingers, and then I can count if I wanted to. But it's really not necessary unless I was diabetic or I had a heart issue or a high blood pressure. That would be something that would be useful for a Fitbit or something similar, but those are kind of niche markets, so to speak. We're talking about mainstream market appeal, which is what's happening right now. Most people, or not most people, but there's quite a significant amount of people that have smartwatches, and the other reason I think it's a fad is because, all right, you have this watch, this $30 watch from Casio. This is guaranteed to last 7 years, and after 7 years all I really have to do is replace the battery unless I break it somehow. I drop it and it breaks somehow, which hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it really will. Hopefully not. So it's fairly long lasting and it's pretty cheap. It was like $30, and it's like it works very well. You have a smartwatch which is developed by phone companies for the most part. So you have like an iPhone. You basically have to assume that the smartwatch's lifespan is equal to that of an iPhone, which is generally about 2 or 3 years. If 4 maybe if you're lucky. These phones aren't really built to last, and smartwatches unfortunately are also not built to last. So you're gonna have it maybe for 2 years. I don't know how much a smartwatch costs. Let's say it's like $500. You're gonna really spend $500 every 2 years to get a new smartwatch. It's not really a practical investment. You're going to do that with your phone anyway. Are you going to pay extra to get the smartwatch that basically just does everything your phone does, but it's just right here? The only way I could see a smartwatch actually being popular is if it had long-term, like it lasts a long time, so to speak, which most of them don't. I feel like a lot of them just are going to break down in a couple of years. And all these people that are wearing these smartwatches aren't probably not going to buy another one because what does it provide you in terms of improving your life, so to speak? A phone is very practical in the sense that you can contact people anywhere in the world. You can hit up people anywhere in the world. Smartwatch is kind of like a weird accessory that's not really necessary in a lot of regards. It has a lot of cool little features that you can do, but at the end of the day it's kind of an unnecessary breach of efficiency. You have efficiency that's sort of meant to make our lives easier. You have a fridge which makes things last longer, makes food last longer. That's a very efficient means of industrialization. You have a smartwatch which is basically, it's like a lot of fun, and you can know your heart rate, and it has a lot of little cool things that you can do that you didn't really have beforehand, which is kind of like, it's unnecessary, but it's nice to have, which is why I don't really think it's going to last long term. These things sort of, even though they're nice to have, they don't really last a long time. The same thing with the fidget spinner. Fidget spinner did have a purpose. It did have a use to it, but it didn't last long. It didn't stay in the market. It wasn't popular for very long. It sort of drifted in and out very, very quickly. And it served its purpose, and then people got tired of it. Just like I believe they will get tired of their smartwatch, because the smartwatch, once it breaks down, I feel like they'll be at a point, it's like, you know what, I don't really need it anymore. The main thing that the smartwatch brings, though, is the health benefits, which I think that would be a cool, like, will be a thing that will continue on as a niche market for people who have health problems or they want to get in good shape and they need that sort of extra boost. But as an overall popularity mainstream market, I feel like it does not have any strong appeal. And those are my thoughts, and I hope you have a wonderful day.